here's Brody Brazil.
All right, let's do it. A 2020 Oakland A's playoff preview. I am getting so excited about the postseason. It's right around the corner. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I do think it's important to reflect back on this current group and how they've really come together so well across the last several years. This is now 3 straight trips to the postseason for Oakland, and also for the franchise, their 6th time in the last 9 years. But nothing like this year of 2020 and the season of 60 games in 66 days. Nothing has been normal. Nothing has been easy. Beginning all the way back with their, second spring training, that Camp Coliseum back in July to ramp up for the sprint that was to be. That was not normal at all. Unconventional. A lot of questions, even with this team playing through a pandemic all season long, and even having their games shut down for a handful of days with the positive COVID test while they were in Houston. I mean, nothing has been handed to them at all. But this is an A's team that defied the reputation of having slow starts. They definitely didn't do that here in 2020. They maintained their position in the standings virtually all season long, and they even closed out the division earlier than most other teams across Major League Baseball. So it's just quite impressive that a team that was predicted and projected to do this well, even with everything going on, actually did that well. I think that's a true statement by the Oakland A's, especially in these unusual circumstances. So the playoff preview here has 7 different things I want to talk about. Number 1 is obvious. Number 1 is so unfortunate, the absence of Matt Chapman. He's not been around the team now for a couple weeks, but even a couple weeks before that, he had not been playing the same, trying to play through that hip injury. And he's had surgery since, so he's off the table completely as an option. Maybe that even mentally makes all of this easier. If he were still struggling through this, you'd take Chapman if you could get him, but maybe it helps us to have to move on without Chapman in these playoffs. I say it like that because obviously he's a team leader, and obviously everybody's going to talk about what this team loses defensively at third base. I also want to point out, don't sleep on the bat, by the way. It seems like a topic most are not including. But yeah, I mean, the obvious is this. Beyond the clubhouse stuff, what he does defensively at the hot corner, whether it's 3 to 5 to 8 defensive gems that he could make, let's say, in an entire postseason of who knows how many games for Oakland. I mean, think about those difference makers in particular games and how it would translate into particular series. The A's just don't have his platinum glove services, and unfortunately, I think we're going to notice it at some point because we know the playoffs are all about defense and holding the other team off the scoreboard. That's a huge part of Matt Chapman's game defensively at third base. So I'd also like to say here while we're on the topic, it just goes to show you how fortunate the A's were in the acquisition of Jake Lamb. That's a player that just came at the right time, produced right out of the gate. I love the way Lamb plays with a chip on his shoulder. I love his motivation. Says he's feeling healthy and fresh. I mean, the timing couldn't have worked out any better for the A's and for Lamb. You're never going to replace Matt Chapman, but I like how Lamb fits in with this team right now. Number 2 is the fact that there's no automatic defined playoff rotation. You can't just immediately name a 1, 2, and 3 for a 3-man wildcard rotation right off the top of your head. There's going to be a lot of speculation on who's in this rotation and who starts in what order. Now, the good news is there are a ton of options. I really do feel like if you ask 10 different people, you may get 10 different combinations of starting rotations in a short series. But the hard part of all this is so many opinions, and none of it's really going to matter until we know who the A's playoff opponent actually is and what the matchup is going to dictate. We obviously know the A's have 3 lefties they can go to, Minaya, Luzardo, and maybe Mike Minor as a long shot, but 3 righties in Bassett, Frankie Montas, and Mike Fiers. I'm not going to predict much, but the only thing I would say right now, based on his consistency in 2020 and also his ERA of this season, you got to find a way to have Chris Bassett make a playoff start. Outside of that, even I'm not sure where the A's are going to go with this. because there's a lot of different options. All right, number 3 is a best-of-3 series. Yeah, this wild card round is unprecedented for a couple different reasons. Number 1, it's going to be at home ballparks. This is the only time of the playoffs where there is an actual home field advantage besides batting last. Now, the A's will get this, playing all 3 games, if necessary 3, at the Coliseum. But the hard part about this 3-game series and the short series is the rotation. Normally in a best-of-5, you would have your number 1 guy also be available to start, let's say, a Game 5, a win-or-go-home Game 5. You can't really do that in a best-of-3. So that's what makes me think this short series is very much going to be like a short season. You have to get out of the gate well. You have to win Game 1. I really feel like whoever wins Game 1, not just in the A's series, but in all 8 of the first-round series across baseball, is going to have a huge edge if they can walk away with the first W. And yes, I do like this wild card series format a lot better than just a wild card game. And I'm not just saying this because the A's went through 2014, 18, and 19 the way they did. I just think you don't go all baseball season long playing single games. You play series. Why should the postseason be any different? All right, number 4, a certain comfort against the Houston Astros. And I'm never going to sit here and pick a playoff opponent, predict a playoff opponent. The A's don't know. I mean, it also could be the Cleveland baseball team, but I think if you're looking at right now the A's and who they would like to match up against, who they would feel most comfortable against, how could you not say the Houston Astros? Oakland won 7 of 10 from the Astros this season. There's got to be a built-in confidence for the A's because they've seen Houston head-to-head. Now, that's also an interesting dynamic of the format of this season. Western teams didn't see the Central or East. East didn't see the Central or West. Central didn't see the East or West. So you only know firsthand who you match up best against from your own division. And so, again, there's got to be this built-in confidence if, in fact, the A's would match up against Houston in the first round. It also doesn't hurt that the Astros wouldn't have Justin Verlander. The A's have seen Verlander plenty in his postseason career, even though we obviously wish him the best in coming back from Tommy John surgery. All right, number 5 is actually a non-story at all. So why am I even mentioning the rookie-catcher tandem, really a trio in Oakland? Austin Allen started this season, got sent to the alternate training site about halfway through. That's when Jonah Heim came up. But Sean Murphy has been here start to finish. And again, why am I mentioning all of this? And I feel like it's a non-story. The A's have only used rookie catchers all year. Has it been an issue? No. Have you even noticed? Would you have even picked up on that if I didn't mention it here and now? Probably not. Maybe not. Oakland had no issues in the regular season, so the transition here into the playoffs, will it be any different? Does it matter that most every other team has at least a backup veteran catcher? I don't think it's going to be a big deal at all. And I think that's what makes such a positive statement about the A's and who they brought in for the catching position and what these guys have done this year, not just offensively, but also working with the pitching staff. The bullpen has been phenomenal for the A's, one of the best in baseball. And I think, again, it's hardest for a catcher among any position player. A catcher, a rookie catcher, has it hardest in breaking into Major League Baseball. But all 3 of those guys did tremendous jobs. I think the presence behind the dish has been impressive. And again, it complements what the A's put out there on the field. All right, number 6, what worries me about the 2020 playoffs for the A's? There's not a lot. I had to think hard to come up with this. The one thing would be running into a similar situation as last year, where the offense went dormant and there's not a lot of time to get it right and to get it back. It happened in the regular season. It carried over right in to that playoff game against Tampa. We know the A's are capable of scoring 6, 7, 8 on a pretty regular basis, but when they go cold, it takes a while for them to rebound and to get out of that collective slump. And look, this is not a fear just in Oakland. I think Every team should have this collective fear. It's the way baseball works. Hitting is contagious. Not hitting is contagious. It just seems like the A's have run into this at some pretty inopportune times across the last couple years and playoffs. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Again, it's a wild card series of 3 games. That's not long. It's better than 1 game, but that's not a full 5 or 7 game series. So it's going to go quick. They have to have it together from the first pitch of game 1. So my worry, again, is that the offense struggles. All right, 7th and last, what I'm hopeful about for these 2020 A's in the postseason. I think it's pretty simple. This group still has yet to peak. And don't get me wrong, they're having a tremendous year. They're basically on pace for what would translate into a 100-win season in 162 games. They're on that type of pace right now. And yes, they did win 9 in a row at one point. But even back then, they were finding ways to win. It wasn't just automatic all the time. I feel like this team has shown glimpses of brilliance in almost every aspect. Pitching, the starters, the defense, offensively, and the bullpen has been there from start to finish, but it's never fully collaborated like even all of those aspects or even 3 of those aspects all at once. It's also never happened for any one of those groups for a real extended period of time, maybe minus the bullpen. That'd be the only one I'd give it to. So I just think that if you're looking at this team, they're either not going to peak like we think they can all season long, or they're going to peak at the perfect time. I love the options they have at pretty much every position, even with some of the injuries we talked about. You're going to get Chad Pinder coming back pretty soon. I'm hopeful for their health, but I also have complete confidence in all of the backups. This is not a baseball team that's fragile one bit.